Underwriting deals is such a major pain point for people. Most don't want to do it, and the people that are good at it are few and far between. That is why after 6 years of being in the industry and buying over 1,200 apartments, using my best-selling multifamily deal analyzer, I created Real Estate Lab, a full suite acquisition software for multifamily investors. We have built a product that helps investors automate their acquisitions and close more deals, all in a cloud-based platform. You can go to realestatelab.com and sign up today using the promo code TAG2 for 10% off your first 12 months. This is David Tupin. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to the Apartment Gurus, where we dive deep into all things multifamily investing. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and empower real estate investors to reach their highest potential. Each week, host Tate Siemer and co-host Chelsea Garber interview high-level guests from all over the industry who are sure to bring valuable, actionable ideas that will propel your business to the next level. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned investor, you are in the right place. And now your hosts, the Apartment Gurus, Tate Siemer and Chelsea Garber.
Welcome, everybody, back. Another episode of The Apartment Gurus is coming at you right now, and I've got a good friend of mine who's been on the podcast before, and he provides so much value that we had to have him back. Mr. Dave Dubeau out of British Columbia, Canada. He's also a podcast host and a creator of the Money Partner Formula, which is fascinating stuff. And he and his team work with mom and pop real estate investors, $50,000, $100,000 investors, $150,000, providing done-for-you marketing services to help raise capital. And he's a best-selling author and speaker. Speaks at conferences and has written books. And he began his real estate investing career in 2003. Did 18 deals in 18 months. That's amazing. Were those multifamily deals, Dave?
Hell no.
Okay, single family.
Yeah, those are little single family.
Yeah,
no money down type deals.
Yeah, a single family deal a month that's legit. You got to know what you're doing. You got to have the resources and the connections. But and now he invests passively in multifamily properties. So he's graduated, right? He's gone from being the operator and the sponsor to investing passively in these deals, which we've talked about before. Like the passive investor position in these syndications is really where you want to end up at when you grow up. Like that's it's my intention to be a passive investor in other people's deals so that I can just deploy capital and sit back and let somebody else do all the work and collect good returns. In fact, the limited partners in these deals, the passive investors, make the most. Like they have the biggest split on the deal. They get paid first, and they have the highest amount of security because they have the highest amount of ownership in the deal. So Dave, it's awesome to have you back on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, Tate, thanks for having me back. It's great. And I wouldn't say, I don't know how smart I am about that. It's a matter of, I realized a while ago, I kind of suck at dealing with tenants and toilets and all that stuff. And I'd rather let the smart guys do that stuff for me.
Yeah. I mean, again, like it's where you want to be, whether you're smart or not. And Dave, you're very smart. I know that about you. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
we'll see. Let's see what I have to say in the podcast, so that the listeners could judge for themselves.
Yeah, let's get proof of concept here. So, real quick, I do want to mention your new podcast, How to Raise Capital 101 show, and you can get that wherever podcasts are platformed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., or at www.raisecapital101show.com. 101 is our numbers. And the first 9 episodes are a mini course on how to raise 6 figures in a matter of weeks and 7 figures in a matter of months, starting from scratch. So guys, this business is all about deals and dollars, right? Like you're finding deals, you're finding dollars, and you're putting them together. And Dave's got this amazing resource to address the dollars part of it, that half of the equation. And, that's a challenging space when you get a deal and you got to raise $1 million or $3 million or whatever it is. And it can kind of be a deer in the headlights moment, I think, for a lot of people, where it's like, oh my gosh, what did I just get myself into? Like, I got a lot of money to raise here. And being prepared, having done something like Dave's course and listening to that podcast is a great place to start with your foundational knowledge, and so that you don't put yourself in a position where you're unprepared when those capital raises start. So Dave, catch us up a little bit. It's been probably a year or so since we had you on. What have you been doing recently? What are you most excited about other than the podcast, which is amazingly exciting?
Well, yeah, that's the main focus these days. And then my main business is we have a boutique marketing agency, and we work with mom and pop real estate investors, helping them raise money and find private capital. So that's what it's all about. So yeah, it's always exciting seeing that come together, seeing people be able to leverage things and scale up their portfolios, because now they're not so worried about where the capital is going to come from. So
it's a huge piece.
That's our day-to-day for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a huge piece. And so when you say mom and pop, you know, like basically boutique type investment firms, kind of like Greenlight Equity Group, where Greenlight
back when you were first getting started. You guys are way beyond this at the moment. So yeah, our ideal avatar for a client is somebody who's got a little bit of experience. Maybe they got one or two small deals under their belt. Now they're ready to scale up, but they don't know how to go about, doing their first capital raise. They certainly don't know much about syndication. They don't have the track record to really start bringing on tons of accredited investors. So we really help them to leverage their existing network, just like you did back in the day. Really focus in on friends, family members, coworkers, business associates, dial that in first. And typically we find that most people have access, within their existing network to somewhere between $1 and $3 million of capital. It's just a matter of figuring out how to get access to that.
Yeah. And listeners, like these programs, whether it's Dave's program or, a one-on-one coaching program, or, somebody like a Hunter Thompson who has an entire community mastermind with, that's all about just raising capital. And I have no affiliation with Hunter, but I know about his program. And like, honestly, I don't have regrets in this business because I don't really believe in regrets. But at the same time, if I could rewind, I would, on the capital side of things, I would totally do something like what Dave offers, because when you're setting up your capital raising game, it's something that you've never done before. You've never done anything like it before. And you're accessing friends and family, which are super important relationships in general. And of course, when you're borrowing money or using investment money from them to do these deals, you're kind of in a sacred trust position, really. And it's a huge responsibility, and you don't want to let stuff fall through the cracks. And chances are, if you've never done it before, stuff will fall through the cracks. Right. So, I would go back and have somebody like Dave coach me through it and help me build our infrastructure in terms of the landing page, the click magnet, the CRM, the email, and the integrations, the automated emails. Like, that's pro stuff. And you want to come out of the gate as a pro, right? Because even though they're family and friends, they want to see that you know what you're doing. Definitely. And yeah, so take Dave up on at least a initial consultation so that you know what he can specifically do for you. And I think it's a tremendous value that you're offering, and it's hugely important. This is a hugely important piece. And I've mentioned before that our strategy was to go out and get deals, broker relations, tour properties, make offers, LOIs. We attacked that part of the business first. And then we were kind of deer in the headlights on our first deal.
Well, it's got to be I mean, that's what happened to me as well, Tate. That's why I came up with this whole damn thing, is because unlike you, when I had that good deal on the go, because I bought into the whole thing, find a good deal and the money will find you.
Right.
Which I would like to smack whoever came up with that saying. I'd like to smack them right upside the head and say, give him a shake. But I drank that Kool-Aid too. And then I had a great deal. This was a single family home back in the day, but I'd sell finance properties. I'd use my own capital, ran out of money, ran out of credit. And then of course the perfect deal lands in your lap. And now you're like that deer in the headlights. It's like, oh crap. Now I need to raise $100,000 or whatever it was. Yep. And then you're scrambling. Yeah. And my challenge was, Tate, and you probably did this much better because you had success, but my challenge was I was under such a tight time frame that desperation unconsciously just oozed out of every part of my body, right? So I didn't have much experience dialing for dollars or cold calling, but I gave it a try. So I called, rejected. Wasn't used to that much rejection. So my poor little fragile little ego couldn't handle it. So I quit doing that, and then went out and networked up a storm. But again, logically, if you're going out to strangers, like you're out networking at BNI, Chamber of Commerce, Toastmasters, wherever, and you're talking to people that don't know you, and you're trying to raise $100,000 or even whatever it is, especially for bigger deals, you're getting into the multiple hundreds of thousands, perhaps into the millions of dollars.
Yeah, you're
going out to strangers. They don't know you. They don't like they certainly don't trust you with their money. That ain't going to happen, especially in a short time frame.
Yep.
So that fell flat as well. I then came up with a brilliant idea of putting together a little PDF overview of the deal. I thought, hey, if enough people see this, it's going to sell itself. Right. And I emailed that out to a couple of hundred people that I knew. I spammed it. Spammed it cold, and basically got a bunch of responses. That's the only thing that showed any sign of life. I was so happy because I got all these responses until I started reading them. And they all said stuff like, hey, Dubeau, dude, I haven't heard from you in 5 years.
Yeah.
Tate, one guy hadn't heard from me in 18 years. First thing that shows up in his inbox is me trying to hit him up for money for a deal.
Yep.
So not only did I not raise any capital, not only did I lose out on that opportunity, which stung, but I also burned a lot of bridges because I was so damn clumsy. I was like that bull in a china shop, just flailing around desperately. I turned off a lot of really good prospective investors, and that's hard to undo. Once you've stepped in that doo-doo, it's hard to get the smell off your shoe, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and you use the word desperation, and that's really the space you're coming from in that situation. You've got a deadline that you're trying to meet. You don't know where the money is going to come from, and you're hoping that this person that you're marketing to will come through for you, and that is not a powerful place to come from, Yeah.
So you said it so well, right? Ideally, you're doing both at the same time.
Yep.
Right. You're looking for deals. You're setting that foundation. You're creating those relationships with the brokers. You're doing all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, you're getting your investor ducks in a row. Maybe you're not getting people to cut you checks for $100,000 just yet, but you're getting those expressions of interest. You're getting people lined up, waiting in the wings, kind of anxiously awaiting for your deal to come, because then you can go forth and you can make offers. You can tie up properties. You can negotiate with mojo. You've got that confidence because you know that you've got the capital, more than enough capital lined up to do that kind of a deal. So when we're working with clients, that's our whole goal. Let's get your investor ducks in a row first. And then you go making offers on properties, because because you're at that stage now, Tate, right? It's so much better. That's part. I'm assuming that's part of your success is the fact that you've been doing both things right now. You've got the podcast running, you've got a consistent flow of investor inquiries coming in, so you're not scrambling last minute like a crazy person for the cap.
Yeah, and one approach to this, and I want to deep dive a little bit with you on your program and your steps, but I've always thought that, and I still think that if you've got a live opportunity, that it is it elevates the conversation to a different level, because people take you a little more seriously, and they have a chance to maybe invest if they see the light in the deal, and so to speak. One strategy here is to, if you're brand new, you don't have a deal, is network with an active syndicator and many active syndicators, and see if you can take one of their deals, or maybe even one that they already closed, and use their offering memorandum and their marketing package to go out to your investors and present it and say, you're not trying to sell it. You're just going like,
you're saying this is the kind of deals we're looking to do. If I find one, do you want first dibs? That's basically what you're saying there. So that's absolutely brilliant. That's what we do with our clients.
Perfect.
Let's use a deal as a case study so that you can proactively go out there and show people what you're up to and get them enrolled that way. And by getting them enrolled, I mean, get them signed off on an expression of interest, get the ball rolling. If you're going to be, whatever it's going to be required for them to do, if they're going to be getting partially helping to get qualified for financing on a particular type of deal, well, get that ball rolling well ahead of time so that you're not scrambling last minute.
Yeah. Yeah, that's well said. And I think it's a great strategy. We're certainly willing to help newbies and, provide deal offering memorandums and marketing so that you can do that. So one aspect of this that I want to ask you about when somebody's starting out, and let's say they're doing a $3 million deal or $5 million deal, which, that's going to be a 40, 50 unit in different markets, that sort of thing. Or maybe in a growth market, maybe it's 20 or something like that. Most people that are starting out don't have the qualifications to get that loan. So, as listeners, most of you got to have a net worth that's equal or more to the value of the deal. You got to have liquidity that's equal or more to 10% of the deal. And you got to have a track record that shows you can do it. Like that's what banks require. We approach this from, basically the piece that you're missing if you don't have that yourself is what's called a KP, a key principal, or a sponsor on the loan that is going to sign on the loan for you and be part of your team. So the way that we attack this, and I'd like to know how you teach and recommend doing this, but we had a 20 unit deal that was a $3 million acquisition, and I networked in our local REIA groups, the Real Estate Investing Association groups, with a syndicator here in Utah that had a $140 million portfolio, had been doing it for 20 years. His net worth was a lot of that because he had built a lot of these himself. And he had a very ample net worth and liquidity to do these deals, and certainly had the track record. We went out and I reached out to him and I said, look, dude, we've got this 20 unit deal. I didn't throw the sponsorship or key principal thing out there yet. I said, would you be on our GP? Would you be on the team just as an advisor? And, we'll give you 5% of the deal for that. Nothing more than just kind of looking over our shoulders, meeting with us as we're doing this and making sure we're not making any critical errors and that we're strategizing well. And that conversation evolved, and he was willing to do that because why wouldn't you? Right. Yeah. He was willing to do that. And it evolved into a relationship where he actually on that deal ended up signing on the loan and then invested a little bit of money in that deal as well. And we've now done 5 or 6 more deals with this guy. So,
you know what, Tate, I can't think of a better way to do it than what you just did. Right. Okay. Now, you might have hit the home run there because you found a guy worth $140 million.
Right.
That might be a bit of a stretch for other folks, but you might be able to find a couple of people that add up to what you need and however you need to structure that. But that was absolutely brilliant. I can't think of a better way to do that. You're giving first, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't be an advisor for 5% of a deal that you don't have to have any skin in the game? Then that gets that person engaged.
Yeah.
That gets them interested. Just the fact that you reached out that way sets you apart from everybody else who's just after this guy for his money, right? We're trying to get something tangible from that person. You completely set yourself aside there. And then that just led to that person doing more and more and more deals with you. That I can't think of a better way. I know a couple of other guys that have done similar things like that. And that is by far the best thing that you can do.
Yeah. I mean, for us, it was, when I talk to groups and in public speaking and stuff, I contextualized that move as like the smartest thing we ever did. And it was like, and nobody suggested it to us or, it kind of organically just popped into my head, like he's a good guy. We have a good, we didn't know him real well, but we had a good rapport with him.
Yeah. And, you jived with it. He knew who you were. You knew who he was.
Yeah. Yeah.
He would pick up the phone at least, right?
Yeah. And look, like, that speaks right there to the value of these networking groups, these associations, the REIAs. Like chances are wherever you are, you've got a local REIA. Masterminds, paid masterminds, I think are fantastic. You need to put yourself in the right rooms, and especially when you're starting out, you need these partners to succeed. And like without our guy, there's no way we would be doing what we're about to close a $27 million deal, and there's no way that we would have had the trajectory to get to that point without him. So, and he loves us. Like, he doesn't do much more at all than deal with the banks and, provide what they need and want to get the deals closed. And the
banks love him, right? Because he's got the net worth, he's got the experience, he's got the background. They know that he's going to be keeping a good eye on this deal, so their money is much more secure, right? Plus, he's backing it up. So yeah, it's definitely a win-win scenario for everybody there.
Yeah, he's a no-brainer with the banks, and he's signing on recourse stuff for us. So, so it's okay, cool. I'm glad you like that strategy, and Dave, if you want to use that in your coaching program, I won't charge you anything for it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
But okay, cool. So, are there any other talk to me a little bit.
Well, hey, you know what? Let's do this. Let's do something different, Tate. If you're open to it, and we're gonna kind of walk the tightrope without a net here for a second. So it could work beautifully, or we could crash and burn. We'll see which way it goes. So one of the things that's kind of fun to figure out is what is an investor actually worth to you? Not that guy, because that's an extreme example, but what is an average investor worth to us over the lifetime of us working with that person? Because when you understand what an investor is worth to you, then that's going to put everything in perspective. That's going to show you how much time, effort, and perhaps even money you should be willing to put in to getting an investor on board. Does that make sense, Tate? So
totally.
As far as I know, I'm the first guy that's kind of crunched this number in the real estate space when it comes to the lifetime worth of an investor. This is usually kind of an eye-opening number for a lot of people, and I'm happy to take a crack at it with you if you'd like to. And we can use maybe a hypothetical example, because I know I love it. Pretty big deals.
Yep, love it.
But I'm gonna pull the numbers out of you that we can use in this example. All right. So let's
do it.
Let's say we're doing a multifamily deal. Perhaps it's one of these people that's just kind of getting into a little bit newer. So we're not talking about a huge 150 unit type deal. So what would be, give me an example of the typical size of multifamily deal we'd be looking at. I think you mentioned earlier you did a $3 million deal with 20 units or 30 units, something like that.
Yeah. That was here in Utah. And so, 20 unit deals in Utah are a lot more expensive than 20 unit deals in Oklahoma City, which is one of our markets. But yeah, that's a great example. And we can actually use him if you want, because I think he invested $150,000 in that first deal, which
Well, we'll just figure out. Okay. So let's take a look at that deal, and we're going to have to extrapolate some numbers, because you're into this long-term buy and hold, correct?
Yes.
That's what. So let's kind of, just to make it the parameters clear, let's pick a 10-year time frame, right?
Yep.
So from 0 to 10 years, we'll kind of try and crunch the numbers there. And the first number we need to come up with, and I'll draw this out for the folks that are watching it, and I'll kind of talk it out as we're going there. First number we need to figure out, Tate, is what is your best guess as to what the net profit on that deal is to your company over that 10-year time frame. So we're talking all of the different profit centers. So any deal initiation fees, any fees that you guys are getting, your share of the equity, your share of the mortgage pay down, your share of the improvements on the property, your share of the cash flow, your share of the depreciation, all of that, your share of the market appreciation on that property over a 10-year time frame. I know this is tough because we're doing this on the fly, but what's your best guess as to how much your company would net on a deal like that?
Yeah, I mean, between the acquisition fee and the back end and cash flow,
everything.
Yeah. So, let's say on a $3 million acquisition that, over 10 years is a long time. You're going to pay down a lot of principal and
for sure,
and that sort of thing. So, let's go with let's just say an even million, I think is a fair number to say that our company would make in that GP situation.
I like that. I like easy numbers like that. Let's try and keep them fairly simple. That way the math doesn't get too complicated.
Yep.
Okay. So on that size of a deal, how many investors would you typically need?
3 or 4, I think.
Okay, so let's say 4.
Yeah, let's say 4.
Conservatively.
Yep.
All right. So we got, and I'm just drawing stuff out here. So we got $1 million net to your company over 10 years.
Yep.
Divided by the number of investors you need to do that deal, divided by 4, right?
Yep.
Now, here's the question. How many deals on average do you think those 4 investors will do with you over the lifetime of your working relationship with them? And you're going to have to kind of extrapolate here, but you got a number of years under your belt. So what's your best?
I think you could count on, let's say $100,000 investor. I think you could count on them for, a deal a year kind of thing. Do you agree with that, or am I off there?
I don't know. I'd rather be a little bit conservative. So could we say that maybe over the lifetime of you guys working together, they might do 5 deals with you? Would that be conservative? Let's be conservative.
That's great. Yep.
All right. So $1 million net divided by 4 investors needed to do that, multiplied by 5 deals they'll do with you over the lifetime of your working relationship. And then one last number is, if you're doing a decent job of it, Tate, how many referrals do you think you could get from one investor?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a great, it goes to a great point, which is, that's how you're going to grow your network. And
conservatively, what do you think conservatively?
Let's say 2 or 3, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say 2. Let's keep it conservative.
Yep.
So if we get in 2 referrals from one investor, that means that this is as tough as the math gets. That means our referral factor is 3, right?
Yep.
One investor actually turns into 3 investors.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Totally.
Okay. All right. Now you're going to have to help me out with the numbers here. So 1 million divided by 4, my math is correct, is $250,000, right?
Yep.
All right. 200. Then we have to multiply that 250,000 times 5 deals they're going to do with us over the lifetime.
Yeah, 1.25 million. Yep.
Okay. And then multiplied by the referral factor, which is 3.
Yep. So 3.75 million if I'm doing this in my head, but
your math skills are far superior to mine. Use a calculator.
Yep. So
here, Tate, is what the lifetime worth of one investor is to you and your company is $3.75 million.
It's huge. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And is that being fairly conservative? So
I think so.
You're making $1 million. Your company's making $1 million over 10 years.
Yep.
On this kind of a deal. You need 4 investors to do that kind of a deal, right? Yep. So we have to divide it by 4. But those investors are going to do multiple deals with you over their working relationship with you. Yep. So conservatively said, they might invest $100,000 5 times, right?
Yep.
And then they might refer conservatively a couple of other investors to you, so that multiplies their worth, right? So if they refer 2 investors to you, 1 investor is turning into 3 investors now. That brings it up to $3.75 million.
That's really eye-opening. Really eye-opening.
Yeah.
That's $100,000 investor, right? So, that's kind of your average. You're probably going to get 100 to 150,000 as your average investor, and 3.75 million over 10 years. I mean, that is tremendous returns. That's a very eye-opening exercise.
That's 1 investor.
Yep.
2 investors, 3 4, 5, and I don't know how many investors you got on the board, my friend, but this is why we're in the real estate investing space.
Yep.
Instead of schlepping hot dogs in a hot dog stand on the corner of the street, right? Just because when I first became aware of this number, Tate, was many, many years ago, well over 20 years ago now. Jesus, 30 years ago now. I'm getting old.
Wow.
I had my first business. It was a language training company in San Jose, Costa Rica, of all places. And I learned this concept of the lifetime value of a client from a guy named Jay Abraham. And I crunched that number with my language training business and realized that a client was worth $12,000 to me over our lifetime working together, which at that time was a mind-boggling number for me. I thought, wow, that's awesome, because that allowed me to understand how much time, effort, and money I should be willing to invest to bring on a new customer, right? Fast forward 20 years, I got into real estate investing. That number, with the just even with single family homes being super conservative, 10x'd. When I was doing little single family home deals, kind of rent to own type stuff, it was $120,000 was a lifetime worth of an investor for me for that strategy. Now getting into multifamily, bigger deals, the numbers just exponentially get much bigger because, you come from flipping, you understand there's just a few profit centers in a flip, like one, basically.
Yeah, one, really. Yeah, totally.
But when you're doing a multifamily deal, I'm aware of at least 8 different ways that our investors and ourselves profit from a deal. And we're able to we're able to maximize our returns. Now, here's the other thing to think about, Tate. If an investor's worth $3.75 million to you, how much are you worth to your investors?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Huge. So I can't do that math in my head, but I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing. It's super eye-opening. And it just emphasizes how important this investor relations aspect of your business is.
That's right.
So you got to prioritize it.
You got to prioritize it. So when you got an investor on board, right? Does it make sense perhaps to go a little bit above and beyond with the normal communications? Does it make sense perhaps to figure out when their birthday is and send them a nice gift? Does it make sense to kind of add into the budget there for Christmas presents, special occasion type things, a little bit of whining and dining there, instead of just sending them a PDF report quarterly or semi-annually or whatever the hell it is? Does it make sense to step it up several notches to make them feel like the VIP they sure as hell are for you and your business? I'm not pointing you out directly. I'm just saying in general, these are the things we need to keep in mind when we're working with investors. Does it make sense to proactively look for testimonials or get testimonials and referrals from our current investors to new investors instead of just passively waiting and hoping for them to show up, right? So all of these things play a huge role in not only your short-term success with your investors, but most definitely with your long-term success as well.
Yeah. And, just to add to that list, deal gifts, something to acknowledge the closing of a deal. And sometimes people I've heard have events where they'll fly everybody to a kind of exotic destination, and you wine and dine them for a couple days. And, there's all kinds of things that you can do. Let me ask you this, Dave, kind of out of the beginner realm and more like towards somebody like me and my team. We're a team of 3 partners. We all work full-time on this job. We work our butts off, and we're dealing with acquisitions. We're dealing with asset management. We're dealing with attorneys. There's so many moving parts, and the investor relations, you got an investor and they've deployed their money, and it's like, get them a report, have a webinar once a quarter kind of thing to keep them informed. I'll fully own that we're not optimizing our investor relations. We haven't really taken advantage of the opportunity there. One question I have, we've started scaling. We've got a full-time VA that is really our administrative assistant. Nice. We've got a graphic design VA that we outsource all, have him do all of our marketing pieces and everything else. When you see people scale and let's say they reach 50 million or 80 million in assets under management, do you ever see people bring on an investor relations specialist, somebody that all they do is this aspect of it?
Well, I mean, the big guys do. I don't think you necessarily need to. I think that, you can go a long way with your VA like the VA that you guys have, and you don't have to do everything all at once. So it would almost be a little bit jarring if you went from doing what you're doing to then completely going over the top, right? So it should be a little bit gradual. Plus, you have to be careful because you can overdo it as well, right? So if it starts getting to the point where your investors are going, well, geez, how much is Tate making on this deal if he's flying us all out to Cancun for an all-inclusive vacation? So
good point.
We got to be a little bit careful there. But here's an idea for you, just to get things started, and your VA can take care of this for you. You guys could do something as simple as signing up for send out cards. Send out cards. I have no affiliation with these guys, although I do use the service. And it's one of these things where I think it's an MLME networky thing, but you don't have to join up that way. But basically, you can get all of your investors uploaded in there. Get your VA to reach out to people, and then or do some research, find out when people's birthdays are. A lot of people, this is public knowledge on social media and that sort of thing. So create some of that stuff there. You definitely know when they started their deal with you, right? You've got that data. So you could set up, even in something simple like send out cards, you could set out a campaign that you can basically set it and forget it, right? That's the beautiful thing. Once you create it, you just press a button. So it sends out cards, but it can also send out just some nice kind of gifts along with the card. So, one of the things we do with our clients when they just come on board, very simple, send out a card with some brownies. I can't tell you how many people have told me how much they love those damn brownies. Send out card brownies, not like I bake them at home, right? But it's especially these days because we don't get anything by mail. Like we hardly ever get anything by mail these days. So bang, that could be something. They've got gift baskets. They got nicer stuff than that as well. But if you do that, or you get things set up and get your VA to do that, this is one of those automatic things that can just be going out automatically behind the scenes. Once you've got it set up, you don't have to think about it. So that would be the first step I would take if I were you guys in your particular situation.
That's awesome. That's fantastic conceptual idea there. So we'll do it. Like there's no reason we shouldn't and can't do that. So I love it.
And that's the nice thing. When you get it started now you just plug in your new investors as they're coming in on board, and the system's already set up and running. Yeah. That's awesome. Fantastic idea. Love it. My pleasure.
Well, we're coming up against time here, Dave, and I hate that.
Time does fly when we're having a good conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah. I guess maybe to summarize, we've kind of already talked about like if you're a newbie, if you're breaking into that first deal, or even if you've done the first deal and you're scaling up, I think we've created a lot of good value for that kind of listener. But what have we not talked about, or what question have I not asked here that you think is important in terms of, words of wisdom? You've been doing this a long time. You've got a lot of experience, and you've seen a lot. You've seen down cycles, and you've seen a lot of investors succeed and some fail. Like, I guess, what kind of final words of wisdom do you have for this podcast? We'll have you back again, so it's not final, but do you have any final kind of thoughts to, for that type of investor in that part of their career?
Yeah, man, I do. I would say if there's one big takeaway I'd love to leave with your listeners, it's don't charge in right off the bat pitching deals, right? I highly recommend. In fact, this is one of the first things we do with clients when we bring them on board, is that you break the ice with your potential investors on a personal level first before we start talking business. Back in the day when I was desperately trying to raise capital, I just rushed in there like that bull in a china shop. And I turned off so many people because I was so clumsy about it. And if I had have just stepped back and taken, it doesn't need to take a lot. Like this doesn't need to take a long time either. We do what I call a warm-up campaign. You can do it automatically via email, and it does all the heavy lifting for you. It will get people primed and ready to find out more about what you're up to with real estate investing. It will set the stage. It will get people looking forward to hearing from you instead of just you smacking them upside the face with, hey, invest in my deal. So if there's one piece of information, one piece of advice, it is don't rush in.
Yeah.
Prime the pump first, break the ice first, warm people up, and then start with the constant, consistent, what I call edutaining communication.
Yeah.
And the other big important thing to remember is, especially when you're dealing with friends and family and whatnot, when you're just getting started, is you got to remember, and don't take offense to this, Tate, but you and I and all of your followers are what I lovingly refer to as real estate weirdos.
Yep.
Who the hell else is going to be listening to podcasts about real estate investing unless they're a little bit different? Everybody else is watching Netflix, right?
Right.
But we got to remember that most of our prospective investors are normal people, not real estate enthusiasts like we are. So we got to meet them where they're at and not expect them to be as keen about real estate as we are.
That's such a good point. Listeners, really take that note and take that takeaway. This is a relational game. It's a long game, and it's not, in the single family world, it's transactional, right? You're dealing with people on one deal and likely not dealing with them
when
again.
you're doing flips, when you're doing long-term buy and hold, it's long-term as well with
totally. Yeah. But in this investor relations space, it's kind of like dating. You don't rush things, you don't force things, and it's organic ideally. And think long game, think relational, think prioritize the person and the relationship versus the business and the deal. That's just fantastic advice. And I know from experience that, it's not a very powerful approach to come at people with business. And it's certainly not, or business first rather, it's certainly not a powerful approach if you're in that space of you got to close a deal and you need these people to come through for you, because they're going to sniff that out a mile away. They're going to smell the desperation, and that's a no. That's going to elicit a no from them.
It doesn't matter how good the deal is. It's going to, their spidey senses are going to be tingling, and something's going to turn them off. So,
yeah. So, for us, that relational versus transactional idea, it applies to all aspects of the business. Our brokers, our, certainly our investors, our lenders, property managers, we're a people first business. And one of our core values is inherent goodness. We see in people their highest and best ideally. And we speak to that. And, when you're coming at people from, Dave mentioned the word edutainment, when you're coming at, that's a value add, right? You're entertaining them and educating them. That's two value adds. And when you're coming at these relationships from a place of how can I contribute to this person? You're recognizing your own value, and you're recognizing the value of the opportunities that you're going to bring them. But think about it from their perspective, and think about how you like to be marketed to, right? It's if people see the value in you, that's going to be way attractive to them, and they're going to want to work with you. So Dave, this has been incredible. In the 45 minutes or so, 50 minutes we've been doing this today, I've gotten some great fantastic takeaways myself. I think listeners in the space of, working that first deal, starting out, building their foundation, planting the bamboo tree, this is key foundational stuff. So Dave, what's the best way for listeners to learn about your program, consult with you about the program, and potentially sign up?
Well, I appreciate that, Tate. Actually, you know what? I think the best way for people to get a good grasp on this whole idea is just check out the new podcast. Again, I'm very excited about that. It's called the How to Raise Capital 101 Show. This is definitely designed for the newbie capital raiser who's just getting started. And that's wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts, or you can check out raisecapital101show.com. And Tate, like you mentioned earlier, the first 9 episodes of the podcast are kind of a mini course on my whole money partner formula process, which is designed to help you raise your first $100, $150, $200,000 within a few weeks, and your first $1 to $2 million within a number of months. So if you're interested in that, again, raisecapital101show.com, and there you can reach out to me as well.
Yeah, and guys, that's free. That's Dave opening his playbook.
No opt-in required, right? That's the podcast. So
you're opening your playbook and showing people specifically how to do this and what to do, and no strings attached. Like when you want to take it to the next level, Dave's got his program that you can enroll with. And Dave's one of these guys that, he's not 2-3 years into this business, like kind of like I am. He's 30 years in this business, and there's nothing you can do to replicate the wisdom that comes from experience and making mistakes and learning from those mistakes and sharpening your saw along the way. Take advantage of this. It's really, these podcasts are great, and you guys listening to them is fantastic. And you're listening to the end of this one. So, that's great stuff. That's how I got started. Taking the next steps and, following through what's offered on these podcasts is really going to elevate your game. And, I talk about my availability on my Calendly link every episode, just about. A lot of listeners take me up on that, but a lot less listeners take me up on that than I would suspect would. And because it's free, it's no strings attached. It's about you. We're brainstorming your business and how to get you to the next level. And it's like free. So, and it won't always be free. I'm going to be starting a one-on-one coaching program here in the fall, and I'll still do the 15-minute consultations. But, Dave has incredibly generously, put these 9 episodes out. Like, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of content. It's a commitment, and he's doing it for you guys. So, really, really consider like taking what's here and then next stepping it, right? That's going to help you level up no matter what. It's going to elevate your game. So, dude, awesome stuff. Totally appreciate it. You're a stud in this space. And, I've learned a lot. So really appreciate you being on the show, Dave.
Thank you so much, Tate. It's always a pleasure.
Yep.
Love having you on my show as well. All right, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Listeners, thanks for listening to another episode of the Apartment Gurus. And, we'll see you on the next episode. We're doing 2 a week now, so stay tuned in. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for listening to the Apartment Gurus with Tate Siemer. Tate and Chelsea are grateful to have you as a loyal listener. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share with friends on your Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or any other podcast platform. Also, check out Tate's YouTube channel for videos of many of these episodes and more. Until next time, take massive action steps and rock on.